Hi, what's going on, everyone? Welcome to the place where you can find the most reliable Web3 content for entrepreneurs and investors. This is your favorite new friend, Kango Lin. So this week we're talking to Aggie from Splinterland, which is a blockchain game, and it's quite novel actually, and it has more transactions happening every second than what Ethereum main chain can actually handle. But let's dive into the podcast actually, because he has a lot to say more than just the game. There's a bigger vision behind this whole project. So dive in and find out. Hey Aggie, welcome to the show. Welcome to Above The Jpeg, man. We're so happy to have you today.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, so Aggie, I met you, I believe I met you at Decentral, right? Were you doing a talk in Decentral Austin?
I was down there. I don't know that I gave a talk. These things blur together. I don't even know.
I know, right? I think you guys had a booth. Sprinland had a booth at Decentraland, and that's how I found out about you guys. And I was just thought it was such a fascinating game because they've achieved a lot of success compared to a lot of other NFT game developers out there. I just thought there's a lot of good experience could be shared here, and some bigger purpose behind the scene. So starting off, Aggie, why don't you give us a little rundown on your background, man? We'd love to get to know about you, the creator of the game, right? The master brain behind everything here.
I got a weird background. I'm a PhD chemist. So I went to grad school down at Texas A&M, got a degree in chemistry, and I actually worked in the chemical industry for a couple of years. Then I switched to teaching and became a college professor. And while in college, or while teaching college, I started using this online homework to help my students learn, and it really improved their grades. So I told the publishing company, and they hired me, and they were like, these results are great, go tell them to other professors. And it started a 10 to 15 year publishing sales career. So then I moved away from publishing. I caught the crypto bug back in 2016, started getting really heavily into crypto, and then it started working on a couple business projects, one of which was with Matt, on like my partner Matt, who's Matt Rosen. He's one of the guys that we were working on like a little advertising or marketing tool. And at the end of that conversation, which was in a restaurant in Philly, like even CryptoKitties was literally on this TV that was in this little like Italian place that he and I were in. And we were talking about like, okay, well, CryptoKitties is really cool. NFTs are like a groundbreaking technology, but we really need to have something that's much more of a game. And he said, yeah, we should build a game. And I said, well, in my spare time, I'm a game designer. So let's work together. Yeah, so back in 2014, I did a weird little Kickstarter. It's a saucy game about getting laid, not actual sex, just like characters that would run around and get laid. And so I moved away from that, and like it was like $20,000 or something, nothing major, but I've like published a game, and I've worked on all kinds of like little things here and there that are like always on the hobby side, right? Like, a bunch of chemists are dweebs, and we hang out in basements and play D&D and do nerd stuff.
This is wild, Aggie. So you got a PhD in chemistry, and from there you decided you become a professor. Is it, were you teaching chemistry, or were you teaching?
Yeah, I was teaching Chem 101, Chem 102, some organic chemistry here and there. I was at the Massachusetts Maritime Academy, which is like a military college down in Buzzards Bay, which is like right across from Cape Cod.
Did you like it? Did you like the teaching career?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to be rewarding about teaching. And what I got frustrated by is that like the scale with which you can help people in teaching through like traditional means was small to me. I'd teach like a class of 35 kids. I'd teach 3 of them, so I'd reach 105 students per semester. And I've always been very mission driven of like, I want to make the world a better place. And when you have billions of people, reaching 105 of them per semester, that's not a lot of people in a fair amount of time. It's just not going to happen. So part of what I liked about software is that like, okay, well, if teaching chemistry and learning the skill set is good, this software can go help thousands of people or hundreds of thousands of people. I mean, that software is used in a lot of universities, and I helped put it in a lot of universities because it really improved how well the students performed. So I just wanted a bigger impact, and
Yeah, and
it's the same with Splinterlands, right? Like my goal here, we want to spread peace, prosperity, and freedom, and we think that the best tool to do that is crypto. And in order to get crypto into the hands of the people, it's not. I think you'll get a lot of money and a lot of like trading volume through exchanges, but I don't think you're going to get a lot of people in the door that way. And so we built these tools as a game to basically be a Trojan horse so that folks will experience our game, learn about crypto, and stay, not just because the game is fun, but because of a life-changing crypto experience, which I think if enough people have it, the face of this world will change for the better.
yeah, and that's what fascinated me, which was really listening to the insider, the presentation that you gave at insider.com, or which I'll definitely link down below later. But it kind of detailed your ambition and the mission that was behind the whole game that you're building here is really to unwrap people into a better system.
Yep,
that's more decentralized,
right? Right, because this fiat system has failed so many people. Like it funnels wealth from the poorest to the wealthiest, which like there's some amount of wealthy people being wealthy that makes a lot of sense. That they're either more industrious or hardworking, or maybe they have a slightly better background, and you'd expect some kind of bell curve. But when you look at like just how skewed the economics are in the world, it's like the 0.01% controls something like 90% of the wealth on the planet. And it's just not sustainable to me. And it's not like a flaw in the system. It's not like, oops, look, I guess these guys get all the money. Like I think it's inherently built into the way that we built our economic system. And I think things like cryptocurrency are the best. It's hard because that's the system that we're in, and we're trying to change it. So like even something like Bitcoin, where you have like, here's all the miners, but in order to have a mining farm, you have to have lots of fiat currency. So there's still some element of like, you can't really get away from this broken system where these people are mega wealthy and can sort of buy their way in, but it's still better than the current system by like orders of magnitude. And so maybe we're not going to get it on like the very first try here, but we're trying to undo 50 years to 70 years of financial playing fields that aren't level in favor of normal people. You can see it now. I mean, now more than like any other time in my lifetime, I'm watching like the price of butter go up by 50% or 100%.
That was crazy.
I'm just watching like, rents are some of the highest that they've ever been. A new home, the average new home price in America is something like $511,000. Like that's all of that is mind-bogglingly crazy. And it's not like wages have somehow like kept up with this. You're still, if you're stuck at Arby's flipping burgers, you're still at $15 and you're looking down the road of like, oh, all I have to do is somehow make a down payment for a $500,000 house. Like, it's just, the system is so inherently broken that we need something different. And I'm not rooting for like the Klaus Schwab great reset, but like, let's go provide an alternative financial system that's not just, giant countries publishing or printing as much money as they want. And let's go see if, some other standard of economics can bring prosperity to all of us. And, if you look, like cryptocurrencies have built something like a $1 to $2 trillion industry in like what, 10 years? I mean, like that's a hell of an accomplishment. And I feel like it's really just the beginning. Imagine when more of the world is ready for this. Think about like how the internet changed all of how we do commerce. I think we're going to see similar things with how blockchain changes all the way that we do finance. And we're still very much at the early stages of this, and we're going faster in terms of adoption than the internet. So all of it is looking really promising. I think it's mostly a matter of time and patience and building and making good pieces and putting good stuff together.
I agree, man. I think you touched on some really good points, especially on, how the current system is broken. I mean, a lot of people talk about that, right? And I think there's a lot of people out there, they're very detailed down on these type of subjects. But what I'm really curious about is that, Aggie, how did you, I mean, you mentioned that 2018, that's when you started this game.
Yep.
And 2017, that was when the CryptoKitty came out. I believe, I might be wrong on this, but CryptoKitty, I remember I saw CryptoKitty 2017. I was like, wow, what the hell is this? People just, you tell me I can get this cat and that cat together, I get a new cat and that I own this new cat. When I was in high school, I was like, this is bull crap, right? So how did you come to the conclusion that it's crypto game, crypto game on ramp people? Because today it's still quite hard for a lot of people to understand, even when it comes to crypto game, right? And there's a lot of barrier for regular folks to enter that. Like, how did you just decide that, hey, this is a great on ramp?
Yeah, we needed something that would be a consumer facing application that they could hop into, something that you could have on your computer, your browser, or your mobile phone, and get into crypto and not even necessarily know that you're getting into crypto. So I think there are ways of doing that. Social media is one. You can build, like a TikTok that's crypto. You can do blogging like Hive does. You can do social media is one activity. But I think gaming is really like the magic here, because like a blogger doesn't necessarily come to you with the sense of like how finances should work in blogging, but gamers come with this like inherent sense of how economies work. You're playing StarCraft and oh, I have to mine this and I have to get that gas. And if I combine them, I can make these units and do this and do that. And so like gamers really have that like mentality already of like multiple currencies, how you generate them, how you play, like that's all sort of built into the brain of a gamer. So we thought that gamers made sense. And I've been saying for a while that trading card gamers are actually a really good fit. The guys that like Magic and Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh and Hearthstone, those are like pretty nerdy, heady games. How much damage am I going to do? What does this special ability do? How does that rule change this thing that I'm about to do? I played this card, it impacts that card, which makes these minions that do X. Like those are multiple steps and fairly complicated. It's not like Flappy Bird where you're hitting a space bar over and over. You're doing some strategic evaluation.
It's very strategic.
So we thought that trading card games in particular are a good mashup of ownership, which NFTs typically represent, but then getting more into like utility in terms of, well, here are some currencies that you can earn, and this is how you can spend them and use them. All that plays well together.
That brings us to Splinterland, right? Tell us more about Splinterland, man. I think one of the huge barriers is that a lot of times when people from Web 2, when they read about like Web 3 games, they get lost, right? Can you tell us a little bit about Splinterland and put in, I guess, in the most simple way that Web 2 folks can understand, right?
Sure, it's a trading card game. So you buy packs, and in the packs are summoners and monsters, and you create teams that fight other players. And if you win matches, you earn cryptocurrency. And if you lose matches, there's no negative consequence to you. You just don't get to earn. So this is a way that players can engage with each other, and we can build out this game. And it's a simple, like on its surface, it's a really simple game. And then when you get into it, you realize, oh, there's tons of complexity. But my like 7-year-old can play, because all you have to do, you get like a rule set, a mana cap, and what teams you can do. And all you have to do is like click a summoner, click a couple monsters, and it plays. But the whole trick of this is to figure out, which are the best summoners and which are the best monsters to use in specific rule sets against specific opponents. And that's where all the strategy comes in. So the mechanic is super simple. Click a summoner, click some monsters.
So it's kind of like board. It's kind of like a board game, but you get rewarded if you win.
Yeah, and yeah, sure. That's a great way to think of that. So, you have your cards, you battle, and if you win your match, you earn crypto.
And then if you lose, you don't lose any money.
No, because we do this sort of like So if your users are familiar with Bitcoin, you have like proof of work, and everybody goes and they
Yeah.
mines, and every 10 minutes a new block is released, and whoever discovers the block, they earn Bitcoin. And that's a really neat model. That's the reward pool model. And what we did is we said, well, that's cool, but it doesn't let you get very fine-tuned. Like if we have all these people fighting matches, but only one of them gets cryptocurrency, that's not a lot of fun. So we took that sort of like proof of work approach, but we applied it to what we call proof of victory. So now, you could have multiple people playing a battle every 3 seconds on the blockchain, and multiple people being able to earn. They're not going to earn 6 Bitcoin worth in one transaction, because these are much smaller transactions, and they're every 3 seconds to lots of people instead of just once every 10 minutes to just one. But that's how we kind of open this up and make it so anybody that's participating and able to win matches is able to earn some cryptocurrency.
So how much can people earn in one match?
It differs every single time that we're doing this, and there's some randomization that happens with that. So like,
Yeah.
as you fight in battles, you can earn pennies to dollars in every single match, and you can win up to 30 matches a day before your earning potential starts going down. But then you also get into like reward chests, and you get prizes as you're competing, and those things can have randomized components in it, which could include like very rare cards and very rare skins. And some of those things will go for tens of thousands of dollars.
Oh,
So,
I see. Wow.
while they're in print, they're usually like 50 to $1,000 is kind of like, the ones that are in print and out there. So you can win prizes in any given time that are on the scale of like rent. Like I'm not going to buy you a house, although we have certainly bought many people houses. I've had people come to me and say, hey, I'm a millionaire. Thanks for having invented this game. But, for the most part, you're really looking at like lunch stakes or rent stakes, unless you're at like the highest levels of this and going full degen with it.
Yeah, that's so cool. That's a lot of money. That's more than what I thought it would be, man. I thought it would be, a couple $100, and that's sort of it in a month. But you mentioned that people can actually some people actually bought houses with it. I mean, that's very impressive, man. And
houses, cars. One of my favorite ones was somebody sent me a picture of a bed on a dirt floor and said, I used to sleep on this dirt floor and now I sleep in this bed. Wow. So like part of our economy is that we really tried to design it for the little minnows and big whales to both participate. And so, across this entire spectrum, you'll find all types.
That's amazing, dude. That's so amazing, man. And you mentioned about proof of victory, which I thought was a really neat concept when I first heard about it in our last call. And I think this is something that a lot of NFT game makers, Web3 game makers out there, they're thinking about. Is that what's your thought behind choosing the layer 1 network here? Because you mentioned in another interview that on-chain transactions that are happening right now on the game was more than what Ethereum can take today.
Yeah, right. So we do more transactions per day than the entire layer 1 of Ethereum. And when we talked to Binance Smart Chain, they said verbatim, we can't fit your game on our platform. We couldn't run this. So some of these things have inherent limits, and part of what we've been very purposeful about how we build and what we make and why we make it is to just make sure that we can grow and have, because ultimately the value of all of these pieces is really going to be determined by how many people are in this ecosystem. And if you want a lot of people, you have to worry about scale. So scalability has been one of our highest priorities.
So what will be some chains that you would recommend new game makers into the space to choose from? Because certainly Ethereum is probably out of the options, because Ethereum is so expensive and it doesn't take all the transactions. So what would you say is some good chains to be on, to build a game on?
Well, there's a lot that come out all the time, and I'm not always up to date. So I guess I'd rather talk about features than chains. The things that we look for, we hate gas. Gas makes games unfun, and it can make your least expensive cards unaffordable, because you can't pay $5 of gas on a 1/4 card. So gas kills a lot of games, and all these places will tell you, look, our transactions are cheap and there's lots of room on the chain, and that's true up until people start migrating there, and then gas fees have to get high because you have to stop people from using all the servers and the equipment because they don't actually scale. So having a high ability to throughput transactions, having fast block time so that you know how quickly the game is won or lost and what the results are. I like having human readable names. It's a lot more fun to beat up Aggroed than it is to beat up E1622-9B4. So like having human readable names rather than just wallet addresses, I think is pretty handy. And then, really just coming around to no gas, and
Yeah.
those are a bunch of the things that I look for.
So you would, of course, we need scalability is a huge problem, but what about decentralization when it comes to choosing chains that, let's say we have those features, no gas, the fast transaction throughput, but what if they're not so decentralized, which I imagine they're probably not too decentralized compared to chains like Ethereum, right?
Yeah, I mean, there are other groups that approach this differently, where they create closed ecosystems and they use the word blockchains, basically a hype mechanism, and they control your wallet and they control your balance and they control your everything. Those exist. I mean, you can find examples that are pretty big projects where it's not really all that decentralized, and that's an approach some companies will take. That is not the approach that we want to take. The approach that we want to take is to decentralize everything so much that if tomorrow Matt and I and every single person in this company was like hit by a giant bus, everything could still operate because the users have access to all of it, and all the servers, and it's all open source, and people can build the whole damn thing. So we're not there yet. Doing that on a blockchain is hard. Doing it in a blockchain game is a lot harder. But that's where we're going, is trying to make this so that it's open, decentralized, and no one party is running it.
So how do you give away the governance to these users over time, right? That's a very fascinating process.
Yeah, so we have a governance token. It's called Splinter Shards, and it represents your ability to make decisions on behalf of the ecosystem. And one of the largest parts of that ecosystem is that we have a DAO, a decentralized autonomous organization, which has reward pools, and players can vote on, do they want it for marketing? Do they want to burn it? Do they want to hire a third-party developer to make something? Do they want voice actors, or do they want some Broadway production about Splinterland? I mean, it's up to the community to decide what they're going to vote for. And so the DAO pieces, the first part of that is what we call the validator nodes. We've done a validator node pre-sale. It's currently in like the first phase of that sale. And people are able to buy nodes and operate the system that will control basically token balances, DAO, and voting. And this is a complicated thing to build, so it's still getting rolled out. But it's in testnet now, and we're hoping that sometime in Q3 or Q4 of this year, players will be able to go run their own nodes and operate this game. And that's really like the token balances as the first part is really the first step of decentralizing the whole thing.
Yeah, so I think talking about DAO and decentralization, giving people the governance, I think that's a really difficult process, especially for games that just starting off. What would you say is a good safe number of players on the platform to even start thinking about doing decentralized governance with their users?
Yeah, there's no one thing. There's not like a number. You have to go look at who are the people, what is a project, how important is that initial security to the project. That's like too complicated. But it's you have battling forces. The bigger you get without governance, the harder it is to implement. And the sooner that you start governance, the easier it is to sort of like capture it in a very early process. So you have like a push and a pull in terms of, not starting immediately and starting immediately. And each product with its own group of people will have to determine for themselves what makes sense. It could be 5 people for one project, and it could be 5 million for another. I don't know. It depends on the ambition and the goals and what's at stake.
Yeah, that's interesting because that was one of the problem that personally I'm trying to figure out as well. I'm building this. I'm building 10Exia, which is a protocol tool, and I was thinking, how are we going? Is there even a chance that we can decentralize this, right? Turn it into a DAO so that people can make decisions on what we can do as a protocol. And I found it to be extremely difficult, just because in the early days, getting people involved, especially as a protocol, it's really hard to get people to think about protocol. Is it easier for people to think about games, like what they want to play? Is there
Ultimately, I think some of this appeals to a vocal minority of people that like really dig decentralization. Some people don't care. They just want it to work. They don't care how it works. It's like, I don't care how my toaster works. I just want warm toast when I push the button. But for a lot of the people that really do care, this is the central issue. It's like, why would I play your game if you guys could just take away all my assets? That's dumb. And you don't have to look further than like Blizzard and other examples of big companies that don't like your viewpoint, don't like what you said, and ban your account and ban your trading, and suddenly your time and effort is evaporated. So I don't know. It's a complicated thing, and people will feel different ways, but ultimately experience should bring to mind that the more decentralized your project is, the the safer your funds and the safer the project is.
Nice. So Aggie, I know you got to go soon, and towards the end of this interview, just really curious, right? What is one thing that you learned from working with NFTs that you wish you know earlier?
I guess I didn't have as thorough of an appreciation of how hard it can be to build in blockchain. So like we've been at NFT NYC since the beginning. And at the beginning it was like in a basement, basically nobody was there. And now it's 15,000 people. And every time that we go,
what year was that?
I think it was 2018 was the first year. So like, whenever I go there, I look around and I'm like, all right, well, half the companies that came last year aren't here anymore. And there's a whole bunch of new companies, and that's really exciting, but I have no idea who any of these people are. And, finding people that have any kind of longevity in the space, I actually think is a real challenge. It's a hard place to build. And I wish that I knew that going into it, just so that I could have better expectations set. Like really early on, we told our players, we're going to go build boss fights, and we're going to build boss fights, but it's like, oh crap, all the things that we need to put in place before we can do a boss fight is extraordinary. And so, and not having a full appreciation of what that even means. So we got work to do, and it's slow going, even with like incredibly talented people that know how to do this and have been working on it for years, it's slow going. So I wish I had known that earlier so that I could level set expectations a little better.
100%, man. I feel that too. At first when I first came to the NFT, building protocols in NFT in the NFT space, it was quite open. There wasn't a lot of competitions. And then now there's a lot of people coming in, right? Looking for people with longevity is definitely hard. And and you just figure it out for yourself, it's pretty hard in my opinion. And I think it's definitely harder than what I expected, right? We thought this decentralized solution was going to be easier, but the decentralized solution is actually the building process. Would you agree with me? Is that it's not just, it doesn't feel like it's fully decentralized, right? It's, you got to start with a centralized team and you move to a decentralized state, and that process is really difficult.
Yeah, I mean, you can start with like an open source project from day one. But even still, you know, getting people attracted to your open source project is hard. Like the hardest part of any of these is getting them started. And then unfortunately, it turns out that it's also hard to keep them going. So like the whole thing is a challenge. There's not an easy answer to this. And the trick is to just keep grinding it out to the best of your ability.
Sounds good, man.
Find one dev, get one small objective. I guess that would be another piece of advice of like, you know, as you're building this, because this stuff is so hard, build the smallest piece of it that you can, that functions, that gets you either a service or revenue, you know, and from there start tacking on other things. But, you know, getting some like super ambitious project on day one and trying to figure out all of it, it's a nightmare. You know, like unless you're sitting on tens of millions of dollars, which most people aren't, you know, you gotta smart small and grind it out.
Monetize early.
Monetize early, which you can do in blockchain. You know, it's like really hard to monetize early in Web 2, but it's really not that hard to monetize early in Web 3. People look for early projects to get into because those can very successfully monetize. So, you know, your trick is to just start doing something, and that's your best bet.
100%, man. Yeah, I really appreciate your time and advice, and you know, and all this great juice that you've gave us on the show. Towards the end of this, I just want to thank you so much, man. Thank you so much for being on the show, bro.
Yeah, glad to be here. Thanks for inviting me, and hello to your audience. Please check us out. We're at splinterlands.com. If you want to join our community, we mostly hang out in Discord. So we're at discord.splinterlands.com. And we're also in Telegram at Splinterlands HQ, and also on Twitter. So if you want to kind of catch announcements on what we're doing, we're just Splinterlands on Twitter. But please check us out and please come join our community, play our game. And thanks for having me on your show.